to just, so when I talked to you before, we were talking about, at least initially, like the paradoxical breathing and
Right.
the brain fatigue. Okay. So now I've got to wear a mask for another year. It has to be an SPF one because I can't get sunburned over the left side of my
Right.
face.
Right,
So
right,
I can't breathe even more. Okay.
right.
So do you have like something simple we could begin? Like we could do
Yeah.
it simple. All right.
So so you have a couple, like two choices. So for the mask, the thing that is happening, like as you cover your mouth, part of what's happening is you're having to work harder or strain harder to breathe, and it actually produces a kind of a stress response in the respiratory tract. And so that blend pulmonary stress support is to actually literally reduce the stress in the smooth muscle of the respiratory tract. I mean, it targets just that. Like that's what it's for. So like weird kind of sinus issues, we've used it for that. Even like, how people get their ears plugged or clogged a bit. It's still inflammation, but it still just keeps reducing some of the stress. Because think of it like this, stress and tissue, like in the smooth muscle of the respiratory tract, reduces its ability to function. And so if you can reduce the stress in the tissue or in that system, it will start to function better. And so we use either the pulmonary stress support, or you could use Larch, which there's a bunch of Larch in the pulmonary stress support, but it's also got like Ami Visnaga, and it's got other things to augment what the Larch does. But either one would be super helpful for putting a few drops in your mask and then wearing the mask. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah. And so, like, did they give you a special mask or tell you like special materials to use for the mask or anything like that?
They just said not to get it sunburned for at least a year, at least. And so it's on the left side, which of course that's the driver's side.
So this is what I would suggest with that. And they might have already told you something like this, but because it's on the face, maybe not. But, like if you look at a t-shirt, for example, a t-shirt only has like 7 SPF. Like, if you're putting on sunscreen, like a t-shirt is not the best for sun protection. Like, it will protect you somewhat, but eventually sun rays penetrate the t-shirt and you still get exposed to sun. So there are companies that specialize in making high SPF, like clothing, like shirts, hats, things like this. And I would suspect that they make a mask.
Yeah, I did get a couple of masks. That's it though. In order to breathe through those masks, I have to wear the KN95 because I can't breathe through so I have to be double masked.
You're solid if you're using that one. Yeah, that's solid. Yeah. So you use the for as far as the sun protection, like that should be fine. And but still do the pulmonary stress support and or Larch.
And that would be internal or?
No, just inhaling. Like,
Can't you put it in her mask?
yeah, you could put a couple drops in the mask, or after you're done with the mask, and you can inhale it.
Oh,
Yeah.
what?
Because the thing with the mask is like, I mean, it's a real thing. Like there was, in the early days of all the different masks, I had one on and I was at an airport and I was like, I am like exhausted. I'm about to pass out. I think there's something wrong with me. And I took the mask off and like in 30 seconds, I was like, yeah, I'm all better. Like it was so thick, I couldn't get enough oxygen through the mask. And so I switched to a different mask and boom, worked fine. Didn't have the issue. And that thing of having to breathe through the material, it causes stress on the system. So just stay on top of it so that the respiratory tract improves, because like sometimes you'll even hear like on the streams and things where people are maybe over COVID, but like a month later, they're still having some of the difficulty with breathing, like they just can't quite catch their breath and all that. Part of that is stress in the tissue, like it's inflammation and stress. And so with inflammation, we use the helichrysum, but If they're not responding that great with it, then we switch over and we do the two of those. Sometimes we use hyssop to stimulate the medulla, which helps to stimulate the respiratory rate. You can do that with cinnamon and thyme as well, but hyssop, I like hyssop a little bit better for that.
How about for the brain fatigue? Is there something I could start? I have basil.
Yeah, sage.
Sage.
Basil is a very good cerebral stimulant, and sage is really good. Just your regular sage, Dalmatian sage, sage trilobo. Not clary sages, not Spanish sage would kind of work, but just regular sage would be stronger. Inhale and just several drops on the wrist, like 1 or 2 times a day. And over like a few days or a week, the brain fatigue will usually pop back out. Use the basil to sharpen the mental faculties, but it's a very good stimulant, but it doesn't always rehab like a fatigued brain. It will make a fatigued brain function better, but the sage is actually what kind of strengthens the brain and the body.
Thank you. That's great. You mentioned at the very beginning about COVID and the couple that were traveling and they took something. What was it called?
Monarda. Monarda is one of the best antivirals in the essential oil world. Like, there's several things that are antiviral. Bay laurel is antiviral, Ravensara, Eucalyptus radiata is especially good. Neoli, which is in the family of tea tree. It can strengthen the immune system and help you fight off viruses, but the best antiviral is Monarda. And so, you can inhale, but like if you're really feeling that maybe you're exposed or wanting to pump up the immune system, then I would take a couple drops in water, like a solid glass of water, because it has a little bit of a bite to it. So, you want to be able to wash it down really well. If the system has been under stress for a long period of time, or like as a person ages, like sometimes, regardless of their age, this can happen at 25, 35, at 75, but at some point you just start getting sick easier, you start getting inflamed a little easier. And sometimes your immune system actually ages faster than the body. It just starts getting worn down and reactive. And if that is the case, if that happens at any point where the person just starts getting sick really easily, it's usually the byproduct of a substantial amount of stress, But it could be a physical condition, could be psychological, could be environmental, could be lack of sleep. But the thing that rehabs that is Angelica.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And how would you?
I like every about 3 months, I do a week of Angelica, just keep the immune system strong.
What's the application?
You could do several drops on the wrist, but I do wrist and a few drops in the mouth.
Wrist and in the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And in water?
Yeah, you do it in water. I don't, but like I'm just being lazy and I just put it in my mouth. It's not a really strong scent, and so it doesn't have a big, super strong flavor. So I usually just put a few drops in my mouth and wash it down.
That's excellent. Thank you.
You're
My son